who are the Cincinnati Reds. And what I mean by that, what is the front office, how do they perceive themselves heading into this upcoming season? Is this a rebuilding team? Are they still rebuilding?
That's a good question.
Because if they are rebuilding, Noelvi Marte has to be the third baseman on opening day. You have to know. The only way to rebuild is to know what you have with
If they're
these
rebuilding,
guys, right?
they also don't go sign a big outfield bat.
And so that's why it's like, are they rebuilding? Or if all the talk of, the NL Central is winnable, they want to be competitive, and I hate that. I hate when teams say we want to be competitive, because being competitive doesn't mean you're going to be a playoff team. The Reds have been 80-plus wins and competitive, not a playoff team. They need to be a playoff team. But that's why I'm curious too. Is this team, what are they striving for? What do they perceive themselves as in 2025? Because if they see themselves as contenders, Noelvi Marte cannot be the third baseman, right? On opening day, because you can't risk losing games trying to force guys out there who aren't ready to play or aren't good enough to play at this moment. If you're rebuilding, you do. That's why a couple years ago when they were expected to lose 100 games, that's why, they were like, well, let's call up Ellie. Let's call up Matt McClain, Spencer Steer. Let's just we're going to lose 100-plus games. Let's throw out all the guys that are, we're ready to call up from the minors and see what we have. That's what a rebuilding team does. If you're trying to contend, you don't call up all those rookies. That's what made the story of the Reds 2 years ago so intriguing, is because they had no business being where they were standings and record-wise, and they were in the mix. But I'm curious, who are the Cincinnati Reds? Are they a rebuilding team in 2025? Because we as fans never like to talk that way. We want to talk about how this team's going to compete with the Cubs and with the Brewers and with the National League in general, with all the top teams in baseball. But maybe they're not there yet. Maybe this is the front office telling us, hey, we're just getting some guys that are versatile to play multiple positions so we could find out what we have. Because they're telling you, we don't know who we have at third base. We don't know who's at second. We know they're not looking at shortstops, by the way. They know what they have at shortstop. And we're looking at guys that can maybe play some outfield a little bit. They don't know what they have. I can't tell if this team is telling us that they are rebuilding or ready to contend. And maybe the easy answer is a little of both. But I don't know if you could be a little of both and achieve what you're trying to achieve.
I think they're in the middle. I think they're in the middle right now. I don't think they have a set identity, and that was my issue last year. The entire season is I don't know who the Reds are. They overperformed, and you come into last year and you drastically underperform, or maybe too high expectations. This year, when you bring in a new manager and you're building off of some really good performances, I don't think the goal is to rebuild. I think you've rebuilt. I think you have the pieces you want. We're not going to change that. There's a couple question marks, and they're going to find out what those are this year. And I think there's maybe this year of limbo. I think they could win the NL Central. I think they could make the playoffs this year. I don't think they can win 90 games, but I think they could sneak in. They could fight a little bit, be competitive. But I don't think the Reds are trying to say that they're better than they are. I think the identity right now is we're scrappy, and that's how we'll play this season. Eventually that has to change. Eventually you do have to have a set third baseman, first baseman. You have to have roles on the team that we know who's going to play there coming into a season and be confident that those players are going to excel. Right now they don't have that, I would say. They've got an okay bullpen. They've got a starting pitching rotation that's solid, if healthy. You have an outfield that has a bunch of question marks, and you've got an infield outside of the two middle guys. We don't know what they are. I wouldn't say that that's a team that's, the world's best team in the Central. I don't think that's the world's best team in the National League. It does seem like it's a rebuild, but I think we're a step above the rebuild. We're not fully there, but we're not fully at rebuild. We're right in the middle. And I don't like being in that spot personally, but we're going to sit through this year, and let's see if they overperform again, and maybe they can find a way into the playoffs. The NL Central's bad. It's really, really bad. I think the Cubs are bad, and the Cubs are the favorite to win. I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to quit. I think the Pirates are the Pirates, and maybe the Brewers can get in because the Brewers somehow always get in. But the Brewers are losing pieces left and right too. The NL Central is as bad now as it's been probably in my lifetime. One of the worst Centrals this season you're going to see. I bet the winner does not have 86 wins. So if the Reds are able to win that, I'd take it as a big step forward. Not to where I want to be fully, but we know where I want to be fully. It's, competing for a championship. But I think the first step is winning the division, or at least competing for it, and I hope the Reds are able to do that this year.
I think that's why a lot of us hoped or at leleast place the bar maybe optimistically that was going to be what happened last year, because that is step one. You compete for the division, then you compete for the play or a better seed or whatever, and then you focus on winning a series and advancing in the playoffs. And last year the Reds didn't check off step one, which seemed to kind of push things another year. Maybe they can, get 2 in 1 year, which would be great, and that'd be awesome. And maybe advance in the playoffs too. Hell, that would rock. But I just feel like last year going the way it did, I'm not saying we're in a rebuild still, but it reset things a little bit to where this year is last year.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to compete to try to win a pretty bad NL Central, and then that's it. Like, I think that's the bar for this team, is you try to win the division, and then you hope that they can do that, and then next year we focus on, the next step, and that's advancing in the playoffs. And I know that's not necessarily what Reds fans want to hear. We've been sick of this for a long time, and we want to win, and I'm right there with you guys, but I just don't feel like with what we saw last year, the Reds front office is operating with much I don't know, like speed to get this
Urgency
done. Urgency.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. They're not operating with much urgency just because they didn't see enough from these young guys last year. And as much as we want to get mad about that, I think it's relatively fair. I mean, maybe they are more willing to spend $30 million a year on a Santander if they won, 83 games last year with this core or something like that. We're trending in the same direction as they were in 23. I think it's just a tough sell to say this team with most of your core either injured or underperforming, they're going to all be good next year, and we need to go spend to bolster them. They need to bolster them for sure to have a chance. You have to fill in the holes around this roster, but I just think it's a tough sell for the front office to go all the way in when you couple last year being so far below expectations and the loss of the TV deal. Money's going to be tight. I think it's a perfect storm for them to have an excuse to not go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, talked about the NL Central news kind of that's coming out, something to keep an eye on. The Cardinals made it be known towards the end of last season that they were not going to be aggressive this offseason, that they weren't going to be heavy spenders. The Cardinals, I mean, in my lifetime, are just a constant. They reminded me like the Spurs for me growing up in the NBA. They were just a constant, that's kind of the Cardinals, but that's kind of not been the case as of late. And Nolan Arenado has reportedly been more open-minded to waiving his no-trade clause to more teams in the last 24 hours. So the Cardinals are shopping him. So the Cardinals aren't adding; they are moving on from guys.
I believe they had a trade for him in place with the Astros earlier this offseason that he vetoed.
Yeah.
With his no-trade clause.
Which, why would you veto a trade to the Astros? Like, that's what's crazy to me. So, but John Morosi just tweeted out a little bit ago, or X'd out. Do we still say it doesn't matter?
Well, it's X. Everything's happening on X.
It's the Everything app.
The Mariners and Tigers are options. Yeah, XTV. That sounds like a bad thing, but no, like that's what they're coming. No, I'm just saying, like they're
Elon's
doing,
Twitter.
Elon's
XTV.
No, they are. It's supposed to be like a competition, like Netflix and stuff.
All right,
We'll get
I'm
to
in.
there. But
I'm in.
But no, the Mariners.
It is all. I mean, as much as we say it, it is all happening on X.
It's a good bit.
There you go. The Mariners and Tigers are options for Nolan Arenado if the Red Sox and Cardinals aren't able to reach an agreement. So apparently the Red Sox are deep in conversations for him as well. But the NL Central is what? The Cubs obviously made one of the bigger additions. They've made the biggest addition this offseason of any team in the Central. The Brewers are just quiet. They've moved on from a piece or two, but they're not the but last year we were sleeping on the Brewers, and the Brewers were just a constant all last season.
That's my promise to everyone, is I won't sleep on the Brewers. I don't care what moves they make.
In fact, we're going to do what he's doing.
We're
going to wear Brewers gear.
Yeah, no, I won't even, because the reverse jinx doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they have in Milwaukee. They're going to win enough games to be at the top of the NL Central.
They always do, which is unfortunate. And
it stinks.
They never have a great offense. They never have, I feel like, the best pitching, but now they're going to, I just, like right now, and they've had good pitching, by the way. That was a wrong statement. But I've never felt like they've had enough on the offensive side of the baseball to get the job done. They have. So I shouldn't doubt them, but I am. And I will.
They did
continue.
get rid of Adames, so.
That's true.
Maybe.
Devin Williams is gone.
I thought Council was going to do him in. I really did.
Did you?
Yeah, going to Chicago. I thought that was going to do him in. But Devil Magic.
So
It's in the cheese.
It is in the cheese. They always beat us.
So the thing that's, the Reds, when you think about the Cubs, like you always think, the Reds can't beat the Cubs. They're 36-38 against, they're 38-36 against the Cubs since 2020. Like, they have a winning record against the Cardinals since 2012. Like, we think that, oh, man, they can't beat the Cardinals. They can't beat the Cubs. The team that bludgeons the Reds more than anybody is the Brewers.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, we act like, oh, the Cubs, it's just a mountain they can't climb. That's not. I don't think they fear the Cubs the way we felt like they did for the longest time. Same thing, of course, with the Cardinals at this point. The Pirates are the Pirates. It's all about the Brewers. I mean, I'm not saying you overlook the Cubs or anything like that, but it really does come down to the Reds and how they perform against the Brewers if they want any shot of winning the Central this upcoming season. So
pretty clearly a top dog in this division. And I know the Cubs have the bigger names and the Cardinals have the history and, the Reds have the young core. But the Brewers, they've won this division and been at the top of this division if they haven't won it for a long, long time. I mean, and however many moves everyone else makes, until the Brewers don't win it, it's their division.
We know the Pirates suck.
Well, Paul Skeens is like minus money to win the Cy Young.
Here's the thing about winning the Cy Young and being a great starting pitcher. That's
once every 5 days.
Once every 5 days.
Well, 2 out every 5 days. Jarrett
2.
Jones.
He's okay. He's good.
can you win that if your team is bad? Is there examples of that?
I think
He did.
he did.
Oh, Jesus. Yep. The Admiral. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench when we come back.